Howdy folks, welcome back to Doing Brew. On this episode we'll be installing the base cabinets as part of our complete kitchen remodel series. Now, as I mentioned in the upper cabinet install video, these cabinets are from cabinets.com. They are high quality semi-custom cabinets with solid wood facing, while the remainder of the cabinet is built out of furniture grade plywood. Even the drawers are solid wood with furniture grade plywood bottoms. You won't find any particle board or wood grain stickers here. Okay, it's time to start installing our cabinets, and you can see me using the furniture dolly here to move the cabinets around. These cabinets aren't terribly heavy, but they're large and bulky. So to move it around with just one person, I highly recommend using these furniture dollies. They're only about $25-30 at your local home store. You can get them online as well, and they sure make moving these cabinets around pretty easy to do. Plus, using the furniture dolly will help prevent damaging your floor and also damaging the sides of the cabinets by dragging them around. In video 10, you saw me applying filler strips to the sides of cabinets. Well, we have to do that with the base cabinets as well. And the first one I'm going to install is a long filler strip on the side of a large pantry cabinet. Now this is only about 1.75 inches wide, but what it will do is center this large cabinet on the small wall that it's going to be affixed to. As you saw me do in the previous upper cabinets video, it's a pretty simple task of using the clamps. They really help. They're like a second pair of hands, and I highly recommend using these quick release style clamps. Honestly, I think it'd be pretty difficult to line your spacer, hold it in place while you pre-drill and taper that hole with this nice tapering bit. What that does is it allows the screw head to sit flush so the screw head doesn't protrude out from the side of the cabinet facing there. And then affix the spacer with a good quality wood screw. And I'm going to end up putting 5 screws in just to ensure that this spacer board never has an opportunity to move. Then it's a simple task of getting that cabinet back up on its feet, so to speak, rotating it into place. Now you may have noticed there's some plywood strips on the back of this cabinet. Those really help to stiffen up the cabinet and prevent it from racking diagonally and coming out of alignment over the years. Take a moment to mark the location of those strips, because at a 1/2 inch thick, coupled with the 1/4 inch plywood on the back of the cabinet, that's essentially a 3/4 inch piece of plywood material that will make for a very secure way to attach this cabinet to the wall. So essentially I'll have the screw going through 3/4 of an inch of plywood that's flush with the back frame of the cabinet into a stud. And of course, as you would do with any cabinet install, you got to make sure it's plumb and level before you secure it to the wall. And I'm going to quickly verify the location of my studs and complete the install of this cabinet with 8 screws total, 2 on the top, 4 in the middle, 2 on the bottom. Then I'll go ahead and reattach the doors. To be sure, I had to take off these doors to apply the filler strip on the right side of this cabinet. The cabinets arrive with the doors attached, and in most cases you don't have to take the doors off unless you have to apply a filler strip or secure the face frames. But that's no big deal. It's 1 screw at the top, 1 screw at the bottom. Now once I have the bottom door attached, I'll go ahead and close it, and I'll ensure that the left side of the doors line up, and it's just out of the picture there, but I'm making sure I have a consistent gap between the lower door and the upper door to ensure it's level. A utility knife and a quick snap makes for quick work to remove the excess portion of that shim. Okay, so this brings us to probably the trickiest part of this lower cabinet install project. you'll notice that that cabinet is about 14 inches out from the wall, and that's based on the install plan. I'm checking here just to make sure it's level, and we're almost there. We could probably call that level, but it looks like we're out by about a 1/16 of an inch or so. So we'll shim up the left side of that cabinet a bit. And we're pretty good fore and aft coming out from the wall. We'll ensure we're level front to back, and we'll address this 1/16 of an inch here with a couple of shims on the left side of the cabinet. Bringing that left side up about a 1/16 of an inch, and that looks pretty good. Now that this cabinet's level, we'll go ahead and secure it to the wall. Put a couple of shims back there as spacers to ensure I don't distort the back of the cabinet, and screwing it to the studs. And as I mentioned, this is one of the trickier parts of this lower cabinet install. I have to build up some structural members here to, one, support a kind of a complicated spacer, as well as provide a mounting point, a nice and secure mounting point that is, for the countertops themselves. So this corner cabinet here is directly next to the refrigerator. I need to bump it out this 14 inches so that the cabinet door, which is another 12 inches or so to the right there, will be able to open up without impacting the refrigerator. Because this cabinet doesn't extend all the way into the corner, I need to install those 2x4s to support the heavy granite countertop. These are some of the challenges when remodeling a smaller footprint kitchen. In a larger kitchen with plenty of wall space, you might just run the cabinets around the corner and flank a refrigerator on both sides by cabinets. In this case, we don't have the room for that. So I'm going to install this little spacer here. And here's a picture of it in the finished kitchen to give you an idea of what's going on. There's the refrigerator on the left and the spacer that we're installing just to the right of the refrigerator. That makes for a cleaner install look, plus that little outcropping allows for just a wee bit more countertop space, which is a premium in any kitchen, especially a smaller footprint kitchen. With that cabinet install complete, I'm moving to the next cabinet down in the plan to the right, and that is the sink base cabinet. Of course, the sink base has a lot of utilities run into it, and the first thing I'm going to do is make my cuts for the hot and cold water lines. This is a simple process of measuring up from the floor and then from the left side of the cabinet up against the wall to establish a coordinate, so to speak, left, right, up, down, and finding my center points and drilling out my holes. It's really not any more difficult than that. And that looks like a pretty nice fit. Now you do have a little bit of leeway because I'm going to put flanges over top of those lines that'll really dress up those holes and provide a nice clean look. Next up, I'm going to install an outlet box. Specifically, this is of course a GFCI outlet. Now, I establish the left, right, up, down coordinates. I place the box to trace it, and I use a level to make sure it's going in nice and level so it looks nice. And then I'll use a level to draw nice level lines that'll guide my jigsaw to cut out the hole for that electrical box. Go ahead and cut a hole to start off my jigsaw. It's a pretty easy cut from this point on. And that's a pretty clean look for my outlet box. Last thing I got to do is cut a hole for my drain line. And you can see coming from the left side over, looks like about 5 1/4 inches to the center of that pipe. I'll measure from the floor up, and I'll write those measurements on the back of my cabinet. 5¼ by 14½. Next up, I'm just going to simply measure up from the floor to 14½ and make a mark. Then I'm going to use my level to draw out a level line because I'm not exactly sure where 5¼ lands on there. And here's an important point. I'm not going to make my mark at 5¼ I'm going to subtract a ½ inch and make my mark at 4¾ because I measured from the cabinet just to the left of this cabinet and there's a ½ inch gap between the cabinets. Now you'll notice how I'm drilling all these holes. I drill through on one side, score the circle of the hole saw, and then go to the other side and finish the hole. That makes for a much cleaner hole. Only takes seconds. With that work done, now it's time to complete this install and attach these two cabinets. Now, the facings stick out on the left and right side by about a 1/4 inch, and what that results in is a ½ inch gap between the plywood of the cabinets. So I made a ½ inch spacer out of some scrap 2x4 laying around. I put that in between the cabinets, and then I'll secure that with some crown staples. Now all that's really doing is making sure that these cabinets go together perfectly square, and they're not going to move if they get bumped or something over the years and kind of throw everything out of whack. Just makes for a little bit more solid install. Next up, I need to screw the facings together. So this is the base cabinet on the right getting secured by the facings to the cabinet on the left, the one that we first installed next to the refrigerator. Once I have that done, I'm going to put that door back on. And the last thing I've got to do is find and identify the location of the studs, of which I have 2 running along this cabinet, and secure it to the wall with 2 screws. No shim required on the right, shim on the left to accommodate a little bow in the drywall. Next up, we're going to install the base cabinet to the right of the range. And this needs to come down just a ½ inch off of the cabinet above it. That will accommodate the ½ inch overhang for the countertop. So we're going to go ahead, get this cabinet in place, make sure it's level, which, testimonial to a good joist system, subfloor buildup, and tile job, it doesn't require any shims at all in this case. Little shim behind each connection point on the back of the cabinet where it connects to the wall. I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive just to ensure that this shim doesn't move around over the years. And just as you've seen me do in the last few cabinets, secure it to the wall with a couple of screws into the studs. And that essentially completes our base cabinet install. Of course, I didn't show you the install of every single cabinet, just the trickier ones, and then one standard cabinet, that one that we just installed to the right of the range. I wanted to make sure there was time left in this video to show you how to apply what are called the skins, or the sides of the cabinets. All the cabinets come standard with unfinished sides. The sides that are going to face out into the room require the application of a finished skin or 1/4 inch plywood that matches the cabinets. In this case, put it on the end of the cabinet that sticks out to form our peninsula, and it requires just a very simple cut at the bottom to accommodate the step of the cabinet. Pretty simple cut with the jigsaw. We'll put that in place. The cut is good, and we'll secure it with a few crown staples. Of course, using that quick release clamp to hold things in place. Now, as I mentioned, all the cabinets arrive with unfinished sides. That includes the upper cabinets. So this is the area above the range where the range hood will be installed. And these require skins as well. They come close to the right size, although I had to rip them down just a little bit. I'm going to apply a little bit of construction adhesive to the top of this skin so that as I slide it up and try to take advantage of a little bit of the extra space I have at the top, I cut this skin just a little bit long so it would go up inside or in between these two cabinets so you wouldn't be able to see the top of the skin from the side. Of course, I won't be able to nail that, so I'm going to apply a little bit of that construction adhesive to hold it. Now, a couple of crown staples, and I want to point out that you, of course, want to securely fasten the skins to the side of the cabinet, but you don't want to go crazy with the mechanical fasteners, whether they're nails or staples, because you have to go back and fill those to ensure they're as invisible as possible when the project is done. So just a quick finger measurement of this skin, cut it to length, and just as before, I'll slide it up between the cabinets so you can't see the top of the skin and staple it in place. Well, I've got a few more skins to install, but I think you all get the idea there. Now I'm going to move on to installing the baseboards, or the kick plates, some people might call them. Each cabinet gets at least a baseboard running under the front of the cabinet, and that really helps to tie the cabinets together. It makes them look like one piece of furniture. But right here, I'm installing the baseboards or kick plates around the tall pantry cabinet, the first one I installed in this video. So I cut a sample piece just to use as kind of a gauge to line up my outside corners. Then I go ahead and cut the baseboard material, and this is solid wood material, to length. Now in this case, for the pantry cabinet, I need to trim off about 3/8 of an inch. So I'll rip that down on my table saw. As you can see, fits nicely under. Now I'm using that sample piece or that template to make sure my corner lines up just right. And this is the value of having that little piece. Be a little bit difficult to use with a long piece, but you can see I'm about 1/4 inch long here. I'm going to go ahead and trim that off. And I checked that, of course, and it fit well. So now I'm going to cut the adjoining piece that runs along the outside of the cabinet. Wow, sorry that previous shot was so out of focus. And that looks pretty good. Nice tight corner. I've learned over the years that when you have a nice tight corner like that and then you secure the molding pieces independently of one another, sometimes that corner opens up. So what I like to do is pull the boards out, apply a nice good quality wood glue, and then I can control how tight that corner is by putting it together away from the piece of furniture, gluing, using some nails. Now I know I've got a nice tight 90-degree corner. Go ahead and clean up that glue squeeze out and then slide it in under the cabinet, and that's a nice tight corner. Now you can't do this in every case, especially with longer pieces. If you're working by yourself with longer pieces of molding, you can still get a nice clean install. Cut them to fit, put your pieces in place, join the corner first, and then attach the long run of the molding. Now applying some matching caulk here, and that's a nice clean baseboard install. We have a few more baseboard installs to complete here. Some are longer runs, and this will show you how the baseboards, or again, some people call it the kick plate, will really tie multiple cabinets together so they look like one piece of furniture. Here you can see the two cabinets together, that obvious joint down there by the floor line. You put that baseboard in there and it just ties it together real nicely. In this case, we have an inside corner. Go ahead and get that in place, cut to length, and install it with a few finish nails. And we're installing these nails high along the top of this kick plate, simply because it's much easier to hide, and we don't even really have to go back and fill these holes. Nobody will ever see them. And you can see how this kick plate really ties these three cabinets together. Kind of seamless, really makes it look like one piece of furniture. Hey, Alex has another small piece to install here. Just as before, we pre-cut and pre-joined that inside corner. We'll slide that into place and again secure it with a couple of finish nails. And with a couple more finish nails, that baseboard install is complete, and that completes this video. Here's a preview of what's coming up next. Many of you don't know, but my real love is building furniture, so I'm excited about the next video where I will show you in very good detail how to build out a craftsman style window. It doesn't have to be in a kitchen, it could be in any room of the house, and this goes right along with the craftsman door surrounds that I've done on previous videos a few years back. But I'll show you step by step and break it down by each individual component. In addition, I'll give you a quick overview of the install of the countertops as we continue to march down the road to kitchen completion. And don't forget, we are diligently working on the renovation of the old brick farmhouse. Those videos will immediately follow the kitchen remodel series. And this is a big project, folks. Inside and out, top to bottom. All exterior trim work, fascia, gutters down and replaced with new. I can't wait to see the new copper gutters go up. There's quite a bit of brickwork to be done. Holes left over from previous remodels and additions need to be bricked up, as well as quite a bit of repointing to replace old mortar that's deteriorated and fallen out over the years. Plus, we'll stop along the way and have a little bit of fun. We also have to replumb the entire house. All of the plumbing froze up years ago. This large house previously only had 2 bathrooms. We're going to add 2 new bathrooms where there previously was none. 2 of the 3 porches need to be completely demoed and restored. All of the materials, interior and exterior, will be the highest grade materials with the longest life expectancy. There is quite a bit of plaster repair and restoration to the interior that needs to be done. The 200-year-old windows and window sills need to be completely restored and repainted. All of the interior moldings, door casings, intricate moldings, doorways, ceilings, walls, all need to be repainted. So be sure and subscribe to Do and Brew so you don't miss any of these exciting videos coming soon to the channel. Thanks a lot for watching this video, folks. Sure do hope you subscribe so you don't miss any future Do and Brew videos. If you have any questions about cabinet installs, leave them in the comments or send me an email. Happy to help you any way I can. See you back here next time on Do and Brew. Take care, folks.